What's good, world? This is another edition of Behind the Fences, in the Trenches at Shank motherfucking Radio, man. So I'm over here vibing right now. I got the wildly minded ECC11 here with me, man. We're going to be talking about some more nation stuff, right? However, we're going to get into a little bit of this legal aspect of a 1983 that we are currently going to be working on trying to have the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation recognized as a religion. Now, before we get into that, though, today is almost I know it's Veterans Day, but it's almost like a Memorial Day for us too, because the founder of the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation, the Almighty Latin Kings in Miami, in Florida, our first tribe. This is the day we remember him on. This is the day he passed. What year? 2012.
2011.
2011. King Speedy passed on 11/11/11. So I want ECC to talk about who this brother was, and I want to give a little commemoration to our son King Speedy Monterrey.
Okay, not to get too deep into it, because of the time issues that we're faced with right now, being where we're at, knowing that we're going to up count and all that good stuff. I just want to acknowledge the fact that we did have a founder in the state of Florida, and that founder led to the brothers that basically you're listening to right now. And although he may have been known for this, that, or the other, he made a number of contributions that have been lasting over maybe even his own character at times. With that said, he's definitely worthy of the recognition that we're trying to give him in this development right here, which is the fruition of a dream of many of ours for more years that I can count, that we would finally gain this recognition as a religion, because that is what we are. That is what we are taught that we are, and we hope to more fully develop that idea and that dream here in this generation right now. This is maybe the fourth generation that I represent coming in. No, third I represent. I believe this brother here is the fourth generation, but we're up to around 8 generations here in the state, and that's something that needs to be of worthy recognition as well.
Monterrey, King Speedy, rest in power. All right, so now we're going to go into the show, Shank Radio, the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation. And what we're doing again is just trying to elucidate some of the ideas, ideologies, and philosophies of the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation. And now we can even show a little bit of the religious aspect and why we should be taken seriously. It's not only that our lineage is going back years and years and years and years now. However, our goals are serious. Our goals are no more. Our goals are not less serious than these white fraternities. These fraternities have been around for about 100 years. These colleges and these ideas, these same frat brothers are not called gangs, and they're actually represented as organizations. Why? Because they're not poor. Because they don't come from the poor societies and poor communities. This is why we need to do this. This is why we need to be able to represent who we are, represent kingism legally, not only in prison, but in a free world too. In some countries we're looked at as terrorists, and here I'm sure we're in some terrorist watch list, I'm sure. But it's just because of who we are and who we're trying to be. We have our views, we have our ideologies, we have many, many reasons why we stand on this. This country is not really our country. However, we are a nation, and we do have beliefs. So I'm going to get in now to some questions. We're going to question and answer this format about this religious land use.
And institutionalized.
My bad. The Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Person Act, in comparison to, and what some of the prongs are, and some of the challenges we're going to be facing when we try to bring this action to the legal courts. All right, so first I want to talk with the brother ECC11 on just the Almighty Latin King itself and what makes it a religion. Why is it a religion, and what are we searching for in this whole Religious Freedom Act?
First, concerning what makes the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation a religion, I think there's a number of ways that we can look at this. However, in general, and again, because of the slight time issue that we're faced with, I just want to touch on a couple of things, and that is that there is case law that exists that provides a definition of sorts of what makes a religion in the eyes of the court here in the United States. I believe some of that case law goes back before the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which we're going to more elucidate on here in this particular discussion. However, the point is that it does exist that definition. As well, there's other definitions that we could use, whether they come from one field or another, and their interpretation and look at the definition of the phrase or the word religion. However, there's the other thing to look at, and that's that we, in the definition or the explanation of the religion in our literature, which is literature that we're going to fight for, it starts off explaining the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation with the sentence that the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation is a religion. Okay, one that gives us a national self-respect, it gives us the power to educate the poor, so on and so forth, but it's defined as a religion to us. This is part of our studies. Beyond that, we have a belief in a creator. We do believe in a creator. We have a name for that creator. We have various names for that creator. There's evidence in our literature that leans towards a concept of the Trinity. However, even though a lot of these concepts are available in different religions, be they mainstream or not, they are unique to us. That is one of the things that we know and understand that we have to point out. But it is something that we are confident that we will be able to point out. That is one of the things that we'll get in a little bit later here in this conversation concerning what we think may prevent us from going there. But in general, it's the idea there that we are a religion. Yes, the Almighty Latin King Queen Nation is a religion. Those are some of the things that makes us a religion.
And something I want to touch on too is, all right, those are some good reasons on why we're a religion. But I also want to, because a religion has followers. A religion has people that truly, truly believe in this cause, in their cause, and in whoever is their God or whatever stance they want to take, right? And you have a lot of people that believe in this Almighty Land King Queen Nation as a way, like they says, is a religion to give us faith in ourselves. That's the first thing we learn, is to all of us come from broken places, man. And this is our belief system. It might not be Jesus Christ, but this is our Christ. This is who we believe in. This is what the first thing that gave us power and gave us knowledge of self and gave us a sense of being, a sense of who we are, and it gave us a reason too. And I think just those requirements alone, people that wholeheartedly believe in the ism and kingism, as we call it, for that reason alone, man, we should be able to represent who we are and who we're gonna be. All right, so what are the two prongs that the Religious Freedom Act have to be met by the state? What do they have to prove, man, to prove that we aren't a religion?
Okay, in this act in question, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which was passed, I believe, around 2000, somewhere in that area, it was actually beneficial to us because it made the argument for religion more favorable to those who were attempting to be recognized as such. And this one particularly dealt with prisoners because of the institutionalized persons portion of the act itself. However, the prongs that were presented here were, and this is for the state, they have to meet these prongs. They had to show that what they're doing is to further a compelling state interest. Okay? In this case, the compelling state interest is what they would more than likely refer to as, quote-unquote, preventing security threat group activity or curbing security threat group activity, which has been mentioned in other case law.
So hold on. So this is basically this is the prong where the government has to prove that something that we are doing is going to be dealt again in the STG area. It's going to be a security threat to the compound. Are they saying that we have to?
They have to prove. They have to show that the reason why they won't acknowledge your religion is to further whatever the interest is that the government has.
All right.
And their interest in previous case law thus far against security threat groups has been to curb security threat group activity in their prison system.
All right.
So that's they. And in other words, they meet that prong.
Yeah.
They have met that prong. It's something that I don't see us even having the time to deal with.
Yeah.
The second prong, however, is the prong that makes it more accessible to us, this recognition. And the second prong is that they are exercising the least restrictive means of furthering this compelling governmental interest.
Okay.
What we're arguing is the outright ban, the refusal to recognize, the consequences and punishments are not the least restrictive means. Mm-hmm. This has to do with what it is that we're asking for. Are we asking for everything under the sun? That wouldn't be the least restrictive means.
Yeah. And when you say ask for, what do you mean ask for?
Well, what we're searching for, what we believe in our argument would be, or meets the requirement of the least restrictive means, is we want nothing more than our literature, because it is fundamental for us to have our literature to understand our religion.
Which is the manifesto and
which
the
is
Constitution.
The King Manifesto and Constitution,
All right.
which includes the prayers in question, the philosophy of the sun, all the things that we believe in that make us unique. Mm-hmm. We want access to our KMC, which deals with our clergy as well. And we want access to the chapel and an accommodatable, upon an accommodatable schedule.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Something that's reasonable.
Yeah, for sure.
And we want a dietary supplement every January 6th.
All right.
Which is a national holiday for us and a day that we have by law to observe by fasting.
Yeah.
And other religions in this system and other systems across the country are afforded this dietary supplement when they have to fast in accordance with the tenets of their religion. Those are all we're asking for, those three things right there. We're not asking for the ability to wear symbols. We're not asking for the access to colors. None of those things, because we're looking at this from a legalistic point of view and perspective, and we're looking for the least restrictive means of compelling their so-called interests of curbing security threat group activity.
Yeah.
Which is some of the things that we have discovered in our research, that they continue to be able to classify us as a security threat group, even though we're a religion. This is not a mistake we're going to make in asking that we no longer be considered a security threat group and that be the end-all say-all. Because thus far, security threat groups can have both classifications.
Yeah.
But we want the other classification, which we'll discuss further in there too.
For sure.
One of the other questions.
All right. Now, something we're gonna have to show too to make it more feasible that this is actual religion is the class. You know, how many of us in here would you say should be considered an Almighty Latin King in a religious form?
Okay, without transversing any lines, we're not going to discuss our records, because our records are something that we wouldn't be able to provide anyway. We're going to discuss the records that the Department of Corrections has.
Yeah.
The Florida Department of Corrections, we can estimate, has somewhere between 1,000, 1,200 on record at any given time.
Yeah. And hold on.
This is also, for what it's worth, this is also something that we can request through the Florida Sunshine Law, the Freedom of Information Act. We can get this information and it can be used. But we know from the experience of living in this environment, the amount of people who are documented as such.
And I want to get into that a little bit. I don't want to pull it off track, but it gets back into that STG file.
Yes.
So, in your STG file, which is some arbitrary decision made by these people that have no idea what's going on, they get to classify people in certain ways. They get to classify people in just whimsically, and I think that has been a lot of problems with us trying to be recognized as a religion too, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that they've classified us that we've done or turned it up when we might have not even done any of these things. We've not, these are things that how they contain us, right? And a lot of these ideas, a lot of these STG ideas, a lot of these groups came from, I think the idea of when J. Edgar Hoover went with this COINTELPRO. And I'm not saying that Florida DOC has a COINTELPRO aspect, but one thing I do is I'm sure that
we all know they do.
I'm sure saying that I know that when they classify people, man, they're doing it to hinder us and not doing it actually trying to figure out who is who in here and who is what in here. They're trying to do everything they can to contain us.
In tandem, without trying to go off into another place as well. I don't know if you recall or not, but I ended up sending a letter to central office in Tallahassee to the Security Threat Review Committee in an attempt to find where it is that they have these so-called procedures in place that show that they're not in violation of due process, because they have so many people classified as this, that, or the other security threat group without even them being aware of it.
Yeah.
And it caused a little upheaval up in central office or whatever. But again, like I said, that's not something that we're really going to deal with too much today. But it is something to throw out there, because in actuality, it's going to lead to one of the questions that we have.
And exactly, that's what I was going to get next. Because when it's time, okay, we have to only meet these two prongs right now in the actual 1983. However, when this goes to court, there's going to be question of the validity of this religion, man, and if it practices what it preaches, and these things are going to come up, man. These are going to be hurdles that we're going to have to meet in the future, and that's why I'm bringing it up. This arbitrary STG file that they place upon us is something that we're going to have to figure out how to come up against,
Without a doubt. I think that with what's prevailing here right now with the religious recognition thing, eventually it will lead to further suits. One of those suits will definitely be the discrimination that is exercised against security threat groups in general, but with religious recognition, we have a new argument. We have a new, let's say, violation of the United States constitutional rights to freedom of religion, against discrimination, because now we are being denied occupation, training, a number of different things that would contribute to our rehabilitation in this environment based upon the security threat group classification. However, with religious recognition, now we are recognized as a religion legally. Therefore, if you continue to exercise some of these practices against us, you're in violation of this other constitutional right, which is against discrimination.
Yeah,
because it says in the Constitution that if you base this discrimination on our religion, then you're in violation of that right.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one. I like that you brought that up, because there are already classifications of religions that are considered in DOC security threat groups.
Yes.
There are people that like the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam is a recognized form of Islam, and it is still classified as a security threat group. The Hebrew Israelites are shortly classified as the black radical group. They're in these black radical classes that are considered the security threat groups, because when stuff happens and something happens on this compound, they come pick up all of them. But you'll never see them come pick up a whole class of Christians. You know what I'm saying? Just because one Christian has done something, man. So but these groups that have the STG file are not discriminated to have jobs, though. That's how we have been able to be recognized and be able to further who we are in prison as well. If we can get this classification of only an STG, it's never going to come off. We're forever going to be Florida DOC's terrorist. However, I think that if we can open up this door and show that this is a religion, man, there's going to be a lot of people that, because it's going to open the door for a lot of people to understand our literature, to understand who we are, and then it has the power to turn. So let me not get into that real quick, but I want to also get back into these different STG groups.
Well, that I think is really, it seemed to me that this is the direction that she was going in, and that is dealing with the difference between, you know, opinion, law, this, that, and the other. Most recently, and I speak personally, that I'm not so much familiar with, like, for instance, the Hebrews. Okay, they did gain religious recognition, but security threat group, the security threat group label was not as popularized then as it is now. And so in my study of research and case law, I haven't found so much on them dealing with the title security threat group. However, most recently, I think the case law that has most pertinent to us and most value is those cases dealing with the 5%ers, otherwise known as the nation of gods and earths. They succeeded, I believe, in the beginning in North Carolina, Mickle versus Moore, in the prison system up there, to get religious recognition. I think their argument was under an older act, however, and they didn't have the same protections. And eventually, the United States Supreme Court ruled that they would be recognized as a religion and therefore have access to their literature. However, that would not be enough to equate with their being released or prevented from going to long-term administrative confinement, which is, again, another argument, you know what I'm saying, that will take the stage here in the state of Florida. However, the point that I'm trying to make there is that they received religious recognition by the United States Supreme Court. And that is something that we need to take into accreditation, because we have very similar
tenets,
if you will. I was going to more look at it in the respect of comparisons, you know what I'm saying, as far as religions go. And we had the same classification as security threat groups. So there is something there that definitely I want to point out as something that we've looked at and would like to use. Another thing is the expert witnesses and or testimony that is available. Primarily, we're interested in communicating with Father Barrios, who's helped in a number of things, whether they were publications, books, studies, writings, articles, productions. He was featured in the film Black and Gold, which is a positive, very positive film that we would like to recommend anybody to view. With that said, however, he has credentials. He is known as a sociologist. I believe he's a professor in John Jay College. He's a theologist, and he has wrote extensively on the Almighty Latin Kings, Queens Nation. He has opened his doors to his own church, to our members in New York, and has had a good deal of experience with us. And we desire greatly to be able to communicate with him and hopefully invite him, into this cause of ours, which I believe he has a good say-so in.
Yeah, Father Barrios is Father Luis Barrios, and I think actually using him as an expert witness would be the way to go. He's renowned when it comes to the Latin King history. He's renowned when it comes to Latinx history. It's I think he would be able to help and elucidate who we are in a religious aspect, from almost a historical aspect. Yeah, I think that would probably have to be our major witness and maybe friend in this battle, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna reach out to you, Father Barrios. Just wait on it. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon, man. But I want to reach a couple more ideas, man, when it comes to the future of what we're trying to do here. So, what would you say are some of the biggest forcing obstacles perceived as a potential obstruction in our path, and plans to prevail in this cause, man?
My concerns thus far, the arguments that I've seen that were really disappointing, that prevailed on the behalf of the state, were based on one, and I believe we talked about this in the beginning of this conversation. Maybe it was in the introduction and the contribution with Speedy, and that is that sincerity, a so-called sincerely held belief. Time and time again, I've come across case law in which the court has thrown out a petition because the state was able to show that based upon the petitioner's behavior in prison, it reflects someone who is not a sincere holder of the belief he or she claims to be in practice of. And it's very disappointing because some of us have records. These records, in a lot of cases, are fabricated. But whether or not, the point is that it can be used against us. And my concern is finding somebody who, does not have this, fabricated or otherwise record, and then leading him or her down a path that will ultimately result in them, being once again portrayed as some type of domestic terrorist. Or some type of, how do they like to term Hillary Clinton used, super predators.
Oh yeah, super predators.
You know what I mean? But it's something that I'm concerned with. Another one that has stood out as an obstacle, and this one there, it comes from a lack of a number of things in some cases, such as education, but in other cases it has to do with the conspiracy of the system as well. We get involved in this and we get going, and before you know it, we're in a position to where we're in a dark room and we ain't getting no food, and every other ship is coming in hitting us with chemical agents, and we miss our filing date and we make what's called a procedural error. And that, is one of my main concerns, and that's why, in a large part, why we're doing this here is because at some point or another we need some type of representation. We need to assure representation. We're taking a great risk venturing, in this conversation in itself, much more so with the idea of actually going through with this and the consequences that come as a result.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that needs to be talked about, is what is going to be the potential threat. Not only legal threats, not only what they're going to be, the arguments we're going to be creating, however, the threats upon us in the Department of Corrections. Yeah. And it happens, man. These are things we go through just by having an STG file. These type of things, and then just try to gain civil rights as a quote-unquote gang member in here, man. We're going to have the same things that were happening to the Black Panthers in the 60s. It's going to be the same type of things. It's going to be the same type of quote-unquote containment that COINTELPRO has created, and they're just going to lose us for a couple weeks in confinements. We're going to come up missing. We're going to be off the compound with no DRs and just, some red skin.
Without a doubt, the new Jim Crow, these classifications that are being used have developed over the years. You mentioned COINTELPRO earlier, and we are in the so-called age of color blindness, and this is the new Jim Crow, and the classification of our religion as a security threat group. The use of security threat group, period, the loose phrases such as super predator, so on and so forth, they all fall into the practice of classism, which is prevalent here in the society.
Yeah, and I just want to, I've talked about this before on Ipsy Dixis Radio, that these prisons have become constitutional vacuums. We might get able to win in courts, but in between those times of us going to court and us filing these motions or filing these petitions, there's a lot of dark spots that DOC can fuck with us. DOC can, and they do. When people try to when people try to use the correct means to deal with injustices in here, it's frowned upon by the administration. When people file 1983s, while people file grievances, man, these people are then considered what the pigs call writ writers, and these writ writers become getting fucked with. They get transferred. They lose all their property. So these are things that we're almost making evidence right now by creating this, because this is what we're trying to do, and we know that this is going to happen.
I think too that and it's interesting that you said that, because at first I began to form in my mind the theory that this is in here a laboratory, The government practices a number of things in this void space that you're speaking of. You know, for years, how long have we been hearing and seeing, you know, reading, you know what I'm saying, that the one place that slavery is so-called legal is in the prisons. Here in the United States, slavery does exist. However, the theory here that I'm thinking that you were going to go into, which would have been really neat, and we can still touch on, I guess, a bit, is that this is a laboratory. Yeah. And they do experimentations here, and the experimentations are of a social nature when it comes to law. You know, how will people react about this, that, or the other? And we represent in here a reflection, or like you like to use the term, a microcosm, in the face of what's going on out there. And what they are able to prevail in here against us is against the people. It is against all of us. It is against the human race. This is something that we strongly believe in tandem with our religious beliefs and tenets and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that the Almighty Land King Queen Nation is internationalist. We're humanists, man. This is who we are. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close this out, man. The time is coming there, man. The pigs are about to rush in, so we already know, man. I really appreciate Ipsy Dixis for letting us use their platform, and anyone that listens to this, man. We're right here, man. This is Behind the Fence in the Trenches, Shank Radio, King, and ECC11, man. Hey, man, it was a pleasure.
And love, strength, and sacrifice. The life, energy, and strength provided us by the sun.